Hi guys, welcome to my new video on the Blender for Beginners tutorial series. Let's begin. First, delete this cube here. Now adding a new mesh here. I'll be adding a cylinder. Okay, now after adding this, just scale it down by pressing S. Now scaling it downward in the Z direction by pressing S and then Z for the axis. You see it's getting scaled only in the Z direction. Now we can press tab and hit in go into edit mode. Now press the top face here. I'm bringing it downward to make it smaller. Okay, now we can extrude by pressing E in the Z direction. I'll be extruding it by pressing E in the Z direction. Now I'll be trying to scaling it by pressing S. Now extrude some more by pressing E and in the Z direction. Now scale it some more by pressing S. Now extrude some more by pressing E and let me undo that. Okay, now scale it out. Okay, now that seems good. Now select the bottom face there. Now scale it by pressing S and making it smaller. Okay, now that seems nice. I think we need to scale it some more upward. Yeah, we can do proportional edit here. You see that circle shows the region of effect the proportional edit has. So by reducing the region, that is by scrolling upwards or downwards, we can control the region of effect of the proportion editing. Now I'm selecting the bottom face there and I'll be extruding it downward. What I'm trying to do is to make the shape of a chalice or something like that. Yeah, I'll be trying to making a chalice here, disabling proportion editing. Now I'll try to make the base of that chalice. Yeah, scaling it by S, pressing S and scaling it. Okay, now that seems nice. Okay, hitting A to select the entire mesh, I'm dragging it upward. We can always select the entire mesh by pressing A. A will select the entire mesh and pressing A once again will deselect the entire mesh. That's how it works. Now I am going to delete that top face by pressing X. When I press X, this dialog comes up where you can delete whatever you want, faces or edges or anything. Now hitting tab to move into object mode. It seems, you see, it's yeah, you see there's a hole there but in real life challenges there won't be any hole there, right? So I'll be filling that hole. I'm gonna do that by pressing Alt and right clicking on that edge there. You see it select the entire edge. Now when I press F, it will introduce a face there. Now the hole is closed. Okay, now that's done. You see this chalice is having, yeah, it's sort of thin, right? A real life object will be having some kind of thickness. To do that, I'll be adding a modifier here. I am going into object mode to add modifiers because modifiers can only be added in the object mode. So I just added a solidify modifier here. Okay, hit apply. You see this, it has become somewhat thicker. There's a slight thickness added here, right? It gets added to the entire mesh. Now I'm pressing smooth here. And this option helps in smoothing out the entire object. You see flat and smooth, the difference. Okay, I'm going to add a ring here, and this is by doing Control plus R. Control plus R introduce cuts in the mesh. You can scroll upward and downward as I'm doing now to increase or decrease the number of cuts that you want to add. And now as of now I'm going to add only a single cut here. Okay, now that's right. Okay, I'm adding in one more cut here. Okay, now that's good. Okay, let's move it sidewards. I'm going to add a new plane here. It's a circle. Okay, after adding the circle, I'm going to fill the circle by pressing F to add a face there. So now it says closed circle. Scaling it downward. Now extruding it in the Z direction by pressing E, and now scaling it. What I'm trying to do is make a plate. That bottom circle acts as the base, and the top part will be the face where we are using the plate here. Now I am going to delete the top face there. Press X and delete that face. We are going to add a modifier in the object mode, that is to solidify it. Now that's done. It's smooth. Now leave it aside. We'll be adding a new, just make it smaller to proportional the size of the plate. Now I'm going to try to make a table here. So let me try adding a cylinder. Okay, now scale this cylinder will act as the leg of the table. Let me try. I will do either a cylinder or a cube as the legs. Let me first try with a cylinder here. I can scale in two axes. This is done by pressing shift and press the axis that you don't want to include. That currently I want to scale in the X and Y direction, so I just press shift and then Z. So as you can see, previously I just scaled only in the X and Y directions. That's how it is done. Now creating a duplicating it. Now moving it in the X direction. We have to form an perfectly aligned legs, right? So instead of freely moving, I'll be typing in the distance that I want to move. So I just press G to move in the X and press X to move in the X direction, and then typed in 2.5 to move 2.5 units in the X direction. Now I'm going to duplicate another and move it 5 units in the Y direction by pressing G and then 5. Similarly for this leg too. Okay, hit tab in the edit mode. I think this won't be enough. I think I don't think cylinder will be good. I kind of thinking to use instead of a cube instead of a cylinder. Let me just try once more. I don't think cylinder will be a good idea. I will most probably be using the cube. So yeah. What I'm trying to do here is to select the edges and adding a face there, but I don't think like filling the top portion of the table, but I don't think it will be good. So I'm gonna delete these cylinders. I'm gonna add a cube instead of these cylinders, pressing X and deleting, and now adding a new mesh cube. I'm gonna scale this in the X and Y direction by pressing S and Shift Z. Okay, now I'm gonna do duplicating it, and just like what I did previously, I'm gonna move these legs as the four bases of the table by pressing G to move the duplicated one, and typing in the number of units. You can do this for anything. If you want to rotate, you can press R and then press the axis and then type in how much degree you want to rotate. This method can be used for rotating, scaling, extruding, anything. Now what I did here is I just selected all these four cubes and I just pressed Ctrl plus J so that all these are linked. Now this allows to when they are linked, that entire mesh becomes a single object, and you can edit all of them in the edit mode. Now after doing that, I'm gonna add faces here. I'm filling these faces, filling this space to make the top portion of the table. Okay. Okay, and I'm adding the top portions of the table here. Okay, I think that the table is done here. I'm gonna introduce cuts in the legs of these tables. I'll be doing up to 8 cuts, I think. Yeah, I'll just add up to 8 cuts, just like we did previously for the chalice. You can introduce cuts in any mesh by pressing Ctrl and R and scrolling it upwards to increase the number of cuts and downwards to decrease the number of cuts. I'm adding 8 cuts here to all the legs. Now I'll be enabling the proportional editing, and I'll try to make the legs somewhat to give it somewhat a different look than the plain perpendicular look. Like this. You see this is the usefulness of proportional editing. Usually if you don't enable proportional editing, only that particular edge that you selected will be getting moved, but when we enable proportional editing, the entire mesh will move proportionately to the movement of that edge or face that you have selected. Now I'm going to select the faces of the top here. I'll hit in tab. Okay, I'll first solidify it, then edit it. Now it gets a solid look. You see there will be a slightly thick. It becomes slightly thicker because there's a secondary mesh that comes within this primary mesh. So that is it. This modify and reduce the thickness to the mesh. I'm trying to select only the top portion of the table here. This is a very useful tool. This tool is accessed by pressing C, and this circular region comes up, and when you press this circular region to any portion of the mesh by left clicking, it will select that mesh, and you can deselect that region by pressing the middle mouse button. Now I'm going to extrude this top, only the top region, by some, to introduce some more thickness to the top portion of the table. Now I am extruding some more in the edges, so that some portion of the table is there left outside of those legs. Okay, I'll try to. I am extruding up to 0.5 units in every direction. So 0.5 direction in Z direction, that is normal to that region. It's getting inwardly extruded. I am trying to extrude in the outward direction. So, okay, now that's done. Selecting this region, extruding it by 0.5 units. Okay, now I'm going to select the entire mesh and scale it in the Y direction so that it becomes elongated. Now this, okay, I'll just adjust this leg so that it becomes equivalent to other legs. I just smoothen the entire table here. You see, this is a very useful tool, smoothing. I'm going to select all the top regions. And deselect these unwanted regions. You can move back and forth from the solid view and the wireframe view. That's what you're seeing now by pressing Z. When you press Z, it will the view moves into wireframe mode, and when you press Z again, it will move back into solid view. The usefulness of wireframe mode is that when you press wireframe mode, the entire mesh will be visible to you. When you select any mesh in the trick about this is, in Blender, when you are selecting a mesh, you select every mesh that is visible to you in that direction. So when I am using the tool, C tool, when I am using this tool, I can select or deselect every mesh in the direction that I am keeping this select tool. So that's the usefulness. We'll be deselecting the unwanted regions and selecting only the wanted regions. This can be pretty tricky too, because sometimes we select the unwanted regions too much in the wireframe view. Okay, now this seems to be okay. There's some unwanted regions there, and some regions over there too. Okay, I'm moving this by pressing shift and then pressing the middle mouse button and then moving. So there were some more regions to be selected here. And now that's done. Okay, I will just apply that mode. I just hit tab to move back into object mode, and then apply that and hit tab again into the edit mode. I'll be adding a new material here. This will be the base material. The first material that you add will be added to entire mesh. So this material will be getting added to the complete mesh rather than selected area. So you may just name it as base material. Base, okay. Now I'll be adding a secondary material. I am going to on hitting assign, this material will get added to only this selected mesh. Now I'm going to name it tables. This mesh will be dealing with the top of the table, so I'll be naming tabletop and tabletop. I'm going to change the color. I'm thinking of something like a reddish brown, somewhat. Some more, yeah. I just forgot something. This tutorial I'll be working with Cycles render rather than Blender render, so I will change the rendering engine to Cycles render now. You can click here and just press Cycles render. Cycles render is better because it produces better rendered images, and the outputs will be more vibrant than what we produce in the Blender render, but it has some problems, like it takes too much time to render and so. You see, there are the options that you get in the Blender render and Cycles render are different also. Sometimes it is better to do in Cycles render. I'm gonna select, there's some multiple, you can select the type of surface you want. As of now I'll be just dealing with diffuse with the top. This glass BSDF is very good because it gives a mesh that we are dealing with a glassy texture. I'll be using that for the chalice later on, so I'll be adding the new material here and assigning this material to the selected tabletop. You can deselect and select it. Okay, that was left out. I want to assign that. You can see deselecting and selecting. Now I'm going to name it as tabletop. Okay, I'm going to change the color. To something kind of a reddish brown. Increase the roughness somewhat. You see, there are so many options in Cycles render that are not available in Blender render. I'll be adding a new texture. I'll be leaving it as such. You can see the applied material by going into the material view. You see, going back into solid view. Now I'm going to add a new material for the legs of the table. Pressing Z to go into the wireframe view and using the select tool. By pressing C, I'm going to select only the legs of the table. Making sure that nothing gets left out. I'll be adding a new material. You see, if I don't assign that material, it won't cause any effects on the mesh that you just selected. You see, I'll just show you now. If you, as of now, I haven't assigned the material to the selected mesh here. So if I go into material view, you see nothing has changed. No change will be occurring until I assign that material. And on pressing assign, there you see the material has been added. Just select the legs. Okay, now making sure that nothing is left out. Yeah, one portion is left out here. Selecting those regions. Now I'll assign this material. You can check if it gets assigned by deselecting and selecting those. I'll be in some kind of a yellowish brown color, and on going into material view, you can see that the material gets assigned. Okay, now that's better. Just smoothen this up. Now I'll bring the plate to the top of the table. Oh, before that, I think we haven't added any texture or material to the plates, so let's add some material to the plates. Since this is a plate, I think I'll be trying to give it a ceramic look. So let's first add the material. Let's call it plate. Now to give it the ceramic look, glossy BSDF is better. I'll first give it a mix shader. Mix shader allows us to add two shaders, mix two shaders for a single material. So first I will be giving it a glossy BSDF. Glossy it gets a somewhat ceramic look. Now for the next part, I will be adding a diffuse BSDF. This controller controls the glossiness. You can tweak these regions. You can tweak this as you like to get the output that you require. And so now I will be doing something that comes into my mind. I think it's better. Okay, I'll just completely make it white, and I'll be adding some kind of pattern texture here. Not pattern texture. I will be adding multiple materials to the as rings. I think, yeah, I'll be adding rings here. Just, yeah, okay. Pressing Alt and selecting this will select the entire ring. Okay, now I'll be adding new submaterial. New, the name is ring 1. Be assigning it. Let's make it glossy and give it some what kind of color, some kind of yellow, golden yellow color. Now select this ring, adding a new submaterial, new, assigning that material to the selected mesh. Ring 2, this also should be glossy. Okay, now that looks better. Okay, I'll be selecting this little edge ring here. I'm having some difficulty for selecting that small tiny edge there. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna select like this, pressing shift and right clicking. Yeah, okay. Now the entire edge is selected. Now I'll add a new submaterial here. I'll be assigning it ring 3. Make it glossy. I'll be giving it the increasing the roughness and changing its color. Select. Okay, now the plate is done. Let's keep it on the table here. Now let's work on the chalice. Okay, hitting tab into edit mode. I'll be adding a new material. I'll make this chalice a glassy. I give this chalice a glassy look. So adding the base material and making it glass. Previously I gave some cuts in this mesh, right? You will see why I did that. I'll be selecting this. I'm thinking of giving somewhat like two golden colored rings, or two rings on the top and bottom of this middle portion here, and so and not making the entire thing glass. This will be somewhat like a two solid rings on a glass chalice. Yeah, you can do anything. If you just this not important. Yes, it's something that came into my mind when I made this chalice. Okay, now that's selected. I'll add a new material here. Assigning it. Check if it gets assigned or not. Making it as diffuse BSDF only, increasing the roughness and giving it somewhat kind of a golden color. Deselecting this area. Okay, now this area is deselected. And deselecting this area. And reselecting the required area. And now assigning that. Changing the color of the entire body. I'm thinking of some kind of a bluish crystal glass. Material view. You see, it gives a blue. I have made a bluish kind of glass here. It just when you rendered, you see the material is a glassy with two golden rings in the top and bottom. Just a minute. Now bringing the glass chalice also to the top of the table. adjusting that position. I'm kind of thinking somewhat like a 4-person seated. So if we had 4 persons, 4 plates and 4 chalices on the previous shape, it will be more cluttered. So I'll just increase this scale in the X direction, made it wider. Now I'm adding the 4 persons chalice and plate. I'll be duplicating them, and this, you see, the duplicating tool is is very good, since you don't have to repeat the entire steps to create the chalice and plate. You just have to create one chalice and one plate and then duplicate them. So duplicate them, just duplicating and keeping it in their positions. Duplicating the chalice and adjusting their positions. Okay, now we have 4 chalices and 4 plates. Now just adjust their location so that it looks much better here. Okay, that's much better. Material view. Oh, I forgot a small location on the legs there. This is what happens if you forget to select the entire mesh. So I'm gonna just edit this portion and assign it to the same material. Okay, now that's done. Let's check the camera perspective by pressing 0 in the numpad. The different numbers in numpad 0, 1, 7, 5 and all these keys can be used to see the different perspectives. 0 will give the camera perspective, while the other keys gives the different perspectives like orthographic perspective, front view, top view, side view, etc. I'll be adjusting the positions so that everything comes within the frame. Okay, I am rotating the camera by pressing R and then pressing the axis in which I want to rotate, and then just simply moving the mouse to rotate them. And I am moving the camera by pressing G to move the camera. G is always, remember, G is the shortcut for moving meshes, for rotating, S for scaling, E for extruding. These are the important shortcuts in Blender. Looks very bland, right? We need to give it a floor and some walls. So adding the floor here, adding a plane and then just scaling it, making sure the table is just on top of the floor. just in it, and yeah, just moving it, yeah, it's just, and now the table is just on top of the floor here. Now adjusting the location. Okay, I'm kind of doing a checkered floor, that is, give the floor the design of a chessboard. So I'll subdivide it so that there are 64 boxes. And I'm assigning the new material. Floor, and creating the base material there. Okay, now after creating the base material, I'm going to select the alternate boxes just like in the chessboard. Okay, selecting that, deselecting and selecting. Okay, now that's done. I'll be creating the new submaterial and assigning it, and I'm going to make it black. Now we have a chessboard patterned floor. I'm going to just adjust the location so that the table comes in the center of the floor. Okay, now that's done. It missed something. I'm feeling somewhat kind of something. It should require something else. Yeah, I think we should add walls here. Walls will look much better. Adding 2 walls, even that come within the frame of the camera, will give it the look of that we are taking this picture inside a room where there's a table with some plates and chalices on top. Yeah, I'll be just adding 2 walls here. Yeah, adding walls will be good. Shift plus A and add a plane. Rotating it by pressing R in the Y axis and then typing 90 to rotate it by 90 degrees. Now scaling it so that it's approximately equal the size of the floor. Bring it upward. Okay, now that's look good. Now adding the second wall, duplicating it, moving it in the Y direction. Now rotating it 90 degree in the Z axis, moving it. Adjusting that second wall. Now there's a small hole here, we have to close this hole. Just hitting tab into edit mode. Now select the edge select both these edges and then press F to add the new face there. Okay, after adding the new face, Just press smooth so that the wall looks smoother. I'll be adding a new material for the walls. Okay, and thinking of somewhat like of a bluish color here, bluish tint, giving it a bluish tint. Okay, now in the camera view it looks good. Let me just try rendering the output. I think there may be some problem, like since the wall and the glasses are having the same, almost same color, it may not look that much better. Let's adjust the camera and try rendering the output. Then let's see how the rendered output looks. By changing the axis from global to local, you see the change. When this gives the global axis as x, y and z, and this gives the axis with respect to that object, that means that is local axis. Now we are adjusting the positions of the camera so that it looks good. Now that's done. Shift into global axis. This is the this is the point light source. Change it into a sun. Okay. Now I'm thinking of adding another light source, hemi light source, and so as to give much better lighting. Adjusting the light sources, increasing the strength. Okay, now that looks good. You see this all this what looks like when it's rendered. Let's go back into material view and try rendering it. In the settings, the clamp direct and the seed options, when we previously rendered, we saw that there are so many tiny interferences in the output image in the form of tiny dots. The seed and the clamp direct and clamp indirect options are can be used to remove these tiny interferences in the image. Now clicking render. Since I am currently doing it in cycles render, this rendering is going to take some time. Let's see how it looks. Yeah, I think the glass and the walls, you see the edge of the glass and the walls, since they are having the same color, it's not looking good. I think I'm gonna cancel the render and I'm going to change the color of the wall. to somewhat a lighter blue. I think, yeah, a lighter blue will be better for the wall. Hitting escape to cancel the rendering and F11 to go back into a 3D view. Selecting the walls, changing the colors to somewhat a lighter blue. Bluish green looks much better. Now rendering it. Okay. The rendering is going to take some time. I'll be speeding up this portion of the video here.